it's been just about a week since Ryan Grimm, who's on the show with me, his article in The Intercept about Time's Up and Tara Reade has been released. And we've seen since then some pickup in coverage of this story, but I would hardly say that in terms of CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, those sorts of things, it certainly doesn't seem like it's exploded. And so I'm curious for you, someone who's been working on this, what do you think about where this story is at, where it's likely to go? Is it going to have a bigger impact on the primary than it seems like at present the media is really interested in it having?
Right. We'll see. As I'm sure you and some of your viewers have noticed, there's a global pandemic going on.
I did notice that, actually.
Yes, if you turn on cable, they talk about it every now and then. So certainly there is a historic news cycle going on, which goes part of the way to explain kind of a lack of coverage. That doesn't go all the way to explain why, say, the Washington Post and New York Times haven't written articles about it. In other words, there's cable, yeah, they're going to go for what's rating, they're going to go for what's on their minds. That's coronavirus 24/7. But the newspapers have different sections. They have different reporters dedicated to different beats. So it doesn't entirely explain that. Now, I think over the next week we'll have a more conclusive answer over the question of just how much they're going to cover, because news outlets, for very legitimate reasons, are slow and careful and deliberate in general in the way that they cover allegations of these sort. A lot of people have compared it to the Christine Blasey Ford situation, but I don't think that that's entirely fair to the media for this reason. And like, for instance, I was the first to write about the Ford allegation, but there was a political dispute over the allegation, and that was the subject of my story. I wasn't able to investigate and kind of interrogate the allegation itself. What I could report was that Dianne Feinstein had been told about this allegation. Other members of the Senate Democratic Caucus, in particular the Judiciary Committee, wanted to know more details about it. And there was tension between them. And so I was able to report about that tension, where you don't exactly have that right now. You don't have the Biden camp split. You don't have the DNC curious about this. On the other hand, it certainly has exposed a lot of people for a willingness to believe women when the person that they're accusing happens to be a political opponent, versus the skepticism that they bring to bear when the accused is somebody that they politically support.
Yeah. So I've been reading some of the sort of response articles trying to separate fact from fiction and all that, and then they point out, similar to you, that like there's a reason that some of these investigations by Ronan and stuff take literally years. I totally get that. I don't think that means that the media hypothetically couldn't ask Joe Biden about it. Of course, like it's one thing to do a full article, an in-depth piece, like that's going to take time. We'll see if after that time it actually happens, but they could certainly ask him about it. And at the same time, as you point out, like noticing like the sort of convenient stripping away of social media activity about Christine Blasey Ford from certain Biden affiliated Twitter accounts, like we as reasonable people can look at that and say that says a little bit more about what they really think about believing women than perhaps they'd want to acknowledge publicly.
Yeah, and the Biden campaign, has put out, two comments. One from a former executive assistant, and one from their spokesperson around this question. And oftentimes, when a presidential campaign will comment on something, even if it's just to deny it, media that have been holding off will use that public comment as a way to get into the story. And the headline will be, Biden denies allegations of sexual assault, because now, he's commenting on them publicly. The news outlet is not kind of endorsing or condemning them, just saying like this is a live controversy that has risen to the level of an on-the-record denial from a presidential candidate. And you didn't see many outlets, even bother to cover that. At the same time, you see it trending on Twitter. You see alternative media, TYT, Crystal Ball's show, others in the kind of left alternative media covering it. Of course, the right wing is gleefully lapping it up, so that they can not only dunk on Joe Biden, they can dunk on the entire Me Too movement and call them all hypocrites. So they love it more than anybody. So I think my guess would be, if the media doesn't pick it up now, either the moment that he officially locks up the nomination, or deeper into the presidential campaign, you'll then at that point you'll see kind of the right force the media to start covering it, and Democrats might regret by then that they didn't just hash this out now. Like, just talk it out now, go through it, study it, and move it through the system. Perhaps it involves an apology for misunderstandings, or however politicians handle these sorts of things. But they might regret sitting on it and seeing it burst into the open, months from now.
Yeah, sort of shades of 2016, like, Bernie, don't talk about, the speeches Hillary Clinton's given, right, or, the money that she's taken. Don't bring that stuff up. And then the general election comes. Oh, wait, it's a big story. Right. No one could have seen it coming.
Yeah. How about that? Isn't that strange?
Exactly.
How that happened? I even, at one point, I didn't think they would do this, but I reached out to the Clinton campaign, I think in 2015, and I even made the argument. I was like, look, your speeches are going to come out somehow or another. Just leak them to me now. It'll be terrible for you for a day, but it'll get it over with. And the spokesperson said, let me run that up the chain, and I don't know if she ever even bothered to, but the answer came back, no, we're going to sit on these. And of course they were not going to sit on them. The WikiLeaks dumped them in October.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.